Hi guys, so it's currently 3:35 in the morning and I'm going to do a little bit more work on the Jamal Pitman timeline. I know you've seen all of rough draft number 1. That is where my dog's nose touched it, so we'll pretend that doesn't exist. Rough draft number 2, I can't remember what the last thing you guys saw was, but I have worked on it a lot since then. So I'll just go ahead and scan over all of that information. I feel like the last place was here or above, but I've added a lot of information and a lot of dates. And then before I started rough draft number 3, I went through and added all of the ending number for the years that these events took place, so that way it was a lot easier to organize. I did that over here as well on these mini bits of information. Then over here on rough draft 3, so far I have done a pretty good job of keeping it completely organized by the year that these events actually occurred in. So far everybody has had a correct name. Not all the dates are filled in yet. I need to look at calendars and figure out where those would best lie before I actually go through and input the months and the days that some of these take place in. Sorry, I've only got one hand to turn stuff here. And then we keep going down. This last one is here-ish, this area. So we skip over this 83 one and I'll write down 82 next. And then we will go back and forth between these 83 ones and figure out which one comes first. All of this, and then all of this will come after that, organized and whatnot. Yep, there it is. I was going to say there's a Wayne Duncan one somewhere in here. There's also a part, I'm going to go ahead and look up the definition of vice, which is a division in a police department. I have a basic idea of what it is. I know they work narcotics and gambling, I think, but I know they do more. So I'm going to go look up the definition of vice and write it down here on the second rough draft, so that way I don't make a mess of the third one just yet. Alrighty, so I went ahead and Googled that definition and jotted it down over here. Hold on. Here we go. They focus on gambling, narcotics, pornography, and illegal sales of alcohol. They do not focus on fraud or murder. So now that I have that written down, I have a basic idea of what kind of thing Jamal was involved in when his wife was killed, because I know it was related to when he was in vice/narcotics. Narcotics falls under vice, so he was working a narcotics case within vice when his wife died, which will help me plot out when that timeline occurs and all of that fun jazz. So unlike usual, I do not have my laptop open right now, so I can't show you the websites that I typically use, but in general, I use a lot of month-day generators to figure out certain things, so I will link one of those in the description for you. And when I was figuring out when Jamal was born and all of that, where is that? Hold on. Yeah, over here. When I was figuring out when Jamal's mom would have found out she was pregnant and when he would have been born, there is a pregnancy calculator site that I use, and I count backwards 9 months and then put in an estimate and then keep guessing until I figure out the correct birth date. And I use the birth date to figure out when he was conceived and that kind of thing. It's a complicated backwards process, but the website makes it a lot easier, and I will link that down in the description as well. I use a detective name generator on some names. I have not done that yet here because most of these names are from my other books, like Dustin and Kathy and Holden and all of that. So I haven't done that yet, but I will also link that down in the description for you. I will again link the middle name generator that I used here. It allows you to put in the first name and the last name and then generate a middle name. You get 3 options, I think, each time you generate. I will link that below. I will link the Italian name generator that I use here. Again, I linked that in the first video, but I will also do that here. I think those are the only important things that I have used so far. I've been doing this over a couple days, but with all of my random nap periods and awkward times that I work on this, I don't record it typically, but I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit more jotting down dates over here, and then I will come back to you. Alrighty, so I went ahead and jotted down the definition of vice right under here where Jamal joins the vice division of the LAPD. And because, again, I don't have my laptop open, I can't actually do the calculations for any of this yet, but baby's heartbeat tends to come first, then the gender, then the baby's first kicks, especially when it's a first pregnancy. I do know when she was born, and I used a most popular baby names in 1982 list on babycenter.com, and Jacqueline was like number 142 because I didn't want it to be super common, but I didn't want it to be super rare, and I wanted it to begin with J because Jamal and Janice are both J's. So I'm going to keep writing. I do believe the next one is Jamal completely quitting his government job, or when he helps Shannon leave New York. It's one of the two. I need to figure out which one is important. I would assume that he quits the job because he helps Shannon to California. So I'm going to go ahead and figure out the dates on those and go from there. Alright, so I decided to just show you what I just did since I ran out of room on this piece of paper. Here, Jamal helps Shannon flee from New York. I decided that definitely occurred first. Chance Taylor is a character from my Kathy Baker series. He's the one who helped her change her name from Shannon to Kathy, and afterwards Kathy moves in with Jamal. It's not long after that Jamal quits his government job entirely. He gave up most of his duties at that job roughly 2 years ago, so they have no real problem letting him go at this point. And a little over a month later, Shannon Cruz's disappearance case goes cold and the local authorities assume she is dead. So on this sheet of paper, this is not counting any other ideas that may or may not pop into my head. I now have these 3. I do believe, I don't think there's any others above that. Nope, there's not. And everything but this one left to mark down. There are more events as well, like if we counted when Bo Austin is born, when Dallas is born, when Dallas moves to this department, when Dallas meets Kathy, when Bo meets Kathy, all of that. But since I don't know how far the Jamal Pitman series is going to go, I am not going to add all of that stuff. If Pitman's series happens to cross over the Kathy Baker series, then I will go ahead and add that stuff at that point. But since I haven't even started the actual series, I will not be going that far right now. Honestly, I probably won't. Well, Jamal is hired to lieutenant here, so I'll probably go into at least 2000 and then stop after that. So pretty much just whatever is on this paper, and then be done with it. I think at this point, I'm finally going to go to bed. I was going to go to bed an hour and a half ago, but I got distracted by Jamal. So I'm going to go ahead and put these away, turn off the lights, and go to bed. And unless I get busy writing for Camp Nano tomorrow, I will finish writing down everything that's on this sheet and transferring it over to rough draft number 3. Alright, this is pretty much just a quick outro to say that this is the end of video number 2 in the Jamal Pitman series. Video number 3 will pick up where this one left off, which will just be the continued planning of rough draft number 3. This series is going to touch on a lot of planning things that I typically don't show on camera, which will be how I do character descriptions and clothing descriptions and all of that, which again is stuff I typically don't show on camera. I rarely even post pictures of it on Instagram. Pretty much nobody but me sees the entire process that goes on when I'm planning a series, but I'm honestly pretty excited to show you guys exactly how much work goes into me planning one of my series, because I like to be as detailed as possible. Just like with this video, I make no promises of when part 3 will come out. It depends on where it fits into my schedule with Camp Nano and in between writing and all of that fun stuff. But I will be back as soon as I possibly can with video number 3.